Okay, I've been doing a few cosmetics on the Morris of late. Gave the radiator surround a little bit of a polish up, and that's come up quite nicely. The main thing is the bulkhead. If you've seen on previous videos, and also the engine, you remember it was all quite sort of surfacey, rusty, where it just got damp and left damp for a period of time. So I just sort of rubbed off the loose stuff, gave it the wipe over with the black, touched it in a little bit, and just oily ragged it, and it's just brought it up, looking quite nice, I think. Observant people spot that this sticker is a later addition. It's a proper period sticker, but as I'll be doing an oil change soon, I thought I might as well pop one of those on, and they'll just look the part. All this has been cleaned up just to get it looking proper. I took the coil off, cleaned that up a bit. There's a new dizzy cap on there that came with it, so I'm just going to make some new leads up shortly, and that'll cover that side of things off. And I cleaned the engine up a little bit because that was looking a bit scratty as well, so just to freshen it up a little bit so it doesn't look quite as offensive when you pop the bonnet open. But yeah, the idea with the bulkhead was just to have it looking like a satiny black with a bit of an oily sheen to it. And I think I'm pretty much there with it. There's a combination of wiping it over with some satin black sprayed on a rag, and then with a very dry brush with just a tiny amount of black paint on, just sort of going around the edges a little bit where the paint was really thin, where it needed a bit of extra protection. And once it was dry, whiz it all over with an oily rag, and I ended up with it looking like that, which I think suits the rest of the car pretty well. So I'm pleased with how that's come out. So I think the next job will be to put some extra fuel in, warm it up a bit outside, and then drop the oil out and give it an oil change. That's the plan anyway, so let's see what happens. Maybe I forgot to reconnect something when I put the coil back. I'll just go and have a look. Of course, it does help if you actually put the HT leads back on. I think it'll work a bit better with some plugs and HT leads all fitted, so I'll give it another go. Sometimes I think I'm losing the plot, especially at the moment. Right, take two. Fingers crossed this time. Nearly. There she goes. I think the plugs are just a little bit sooted up. It's only running on 3, I think. I only cleaned up the rear 3 plugs, so I'm wondering if the front one, I mean the leads are horrible, but it's only running on 3 at the moment, so I'll clean the front plug up I think and see if that just cures things. Let's see if all 4 want to play now. Ignition, a little bit of choke. Still 1 down, I think. Like I say, the HT leads are in a very bad way, so there could be a breakdown there somewhere. Or could be arcing between the leads, possibly. I know it ran okay a few days ago, so I don't think there should be anything to worry about too much, but I'll just move it outside and then it can be warming up, and I'll probably look at dropping the oil out of it, I think. Yeah, I think it's still 1 cylinder down, but it's certainly quiet enough still, and I can't hear any arcing between the HT leads or anything like that. Maybe one of the plugs is a bit weak, I don't know how good they are. I don't think they're the right ones. But I'll let it warm through a bit. Just see where we're at. But I think until these leads have been replaced, I don't think there's much I can really tell about anything. It certainly ran alright the last few times I've run it, so I don't see why anything should have changed in the meanwhile. I mean, all the insulation's really breaking up on these leads. I don't touch them, but they look really bad. So I think until then, until it's got the new cap on and the new leads, I'm not going to fiddle with anything too much. So I think the priority for now is just to change the oil and get some decent stuff blowing around it inside. So otherwise sometimes you can be chasing your tail, so until you know that the basics are right and in good condition, there's no point worrying about things too much. It'd be nice if the oil haze starts to clear a bit once I've changed the oil. That'd be nice. You can hear it chuffing away a bit. It wasn't doing that at all the other day, so whether me taking the dizzy cap off and moving the leads around and stuff has just broken up one of the leads internally. It's quite possible. There's a definite misfire there. So, not to worry. Right, one visit to the hefty spanner department, because the sump plug is pretty hefty on this. Let's see what comes out of here. It's pretty weak, I think, the oil. God knows how long it's been in there either. I think I'll let that drain off. Go and have a sandwich on it. Doesn't look great, that's coming out. Ugh. Yucky stuff. Let's go and find a rag. This is the oil that came out of the Morris 8's engine. It's a bit black, but it's not the worst I've seen, but I don't think there's a great deal of body in it. So I think it was high time that it came out. The thing now is, do I put some, I've got some classic 2050, so do I put that in for now, just to get it around the system and then drain it off somewhere down the line? Or do I hang fire and just put some straight 30s in for now? It's a subject of oil is always a bit of a contentious subject when you raise it on a forum or down at the pub or whatever. Everyone's got their own views, but I think as I've got some 2050 on the shelf and it won't do any harm, I'll put that in for now. Okay, she's back off the jacks now, so I've got some 2050, a couple of different brands, but for the purposes of flushing the engine through, that'll be plenty good enough. So just go and find it. Got some of this left. Some Heritage 2050. So that should do. It certainly worked well in the Volvo, this did, so I'm hoping it'll do well in here as well. So we'll probably put some straight 30 in it once it's run on this for a little while. This is really just to flush out any muck that's in the engine itself. So I don't know how long that old oil had been sat in there, but it's certainly a long time. So I don't think it's been in regular use for quite a while, so the oil isn't going to be in great shape, and it's the cheapest thing to replace on an engine, so it seems daft to run it for any length of time without some known decent oil in it. Like I say, everyone has their own opinions on oil. But the way I see it, as long as it's in good order and correct for the vehicle and changed regularly, I think that's more important. As long as you change it regularly and it's a decent oil, not some Mickey Mouse cheapo stuff, you're not going to go too far wrong, I think. But some engines prefer certain brands of oil to others. There's one oil that I used in a car, and the car would just burn oil as soon as it had warmed up through. I would change the oil, put some fresh oil in from a different make, and it worked fine. So a little bit, it's a bit of trial and error with this kind of thing. What works for one car doesn't necessarily work for another. Let's see if it's registering yet. That's safe. In case you wonder, I have replaced the sump plug. It's quite an easy thing to forget. A friend of mine did that once. He was changing the oil on the side of the road and he drained all the old oil off. Then I think he went for his lunch, came out, filled all the fresh oil in because it went straight through, and then he just drove off. So, pop this on before I forget. You can see the oil cap, but it's used Morrisol Serum brand. Serum brand was Morris's own, which was just Morris backwards, Serum and Morrisol. Still a slight mist from somewhere. Just looking to see if there's any sort of engine breather or anything like that, but I don't think there is, because sometimes if the breather's blocked, it can force it to be a bit smoky. Still a bit smoky, but there is a breather down here, that pipe. I think the next thing to do, it stopped. I think I'll remove that and just have a look, make sure that's all clear and it's not pressurising the crankcase, because that could be a problem. So I think that's the next thing to do. See if we can get this breather pipe off. It's a 3/16 width. Down here. I mean, you can take the side plate off the side of the engine, but it looks like a right palaver to get it to fit on, unless you take the exhaust manifold off. But I'm hoping that if I can just take off the main section of pipe, prod something up there and check this to see if it's blocked or not, then that should prove or disprove that there's a problem with the breather. But you never know. Okay, I've separated the breather pipe from the side of the engine, and this seems to blow through okay. But on the side of the engine, there's the probably the valve cover, and there's an outlet. And if I shove something up there, it seems a little bit cloggy. You can't really check to see if it's clear with the side plate still on the side of the engine. So I think, although the access isn't great for putting it back on, I'll have to take that off, and then I'll know for sure whether the breather's fully clear or not. So I don't think there's any way around it, unfortunately. It may be that I'll have to take the manifold off to put it back on and get it to seal properly. I don't know, but I think I should be able to get it off. There's just two small little wing nuts that hold it on, and then I'll pull that off, clean it, and see just what it's like inside really. Wing nuts aren't very tight at all. Just go down there and just about see where the rear one is. There's another one at the forward end. There's one there, that little brass. The brass one is next to the pipe. You can just see it. It's not the easiest thing to get at, but it could be worse. But putting it on might be a different story. Like I say, I may have to whiz the manifold off, which doesn't look too irksome, but I'd rather not disturb the gaskets if I can get away with it. But let's get those wing nuts off and see what we can find inside, I think. That's the side cover off. These are the little wing nuts that hold it on. Underneath is the gasket. Now the hole for the breather doesn't line up with any hole on the gasket, but because this is concave and there are various circular gaps let into the gasket, that's what lets any fumes in the crankcase breathe out. And in theory they all come out of this little pipe here, and I can already see daylight just about through there, which tells me it's not very blocked, unfortunately. Which isn't exactly what I wanted to see, but while it's off I'll clean it and then see if I can get it to fit again. See if I can get this gasket back on successfully, which may or may not work. But I was rather hoping that that was all blocked up, but it doesn't appear to be. So if it's a bit smoky, then it's either rings or valve guides, I guess. So anyway, that's one thing at a time. I'll clean that up and put it back on. I think the next little job will be to make these new HT leads that I've been muttering about for a while. As you can see, hopefully, these are not pretty. They're all breaking up, the insulation's bad, and you really just can't rely on anything that you can see there. So the plan is to make up some new leads. Now I've either got some lengths of HT lead tucked away in here, or I think I'm going to sacrifice this set because there's lots of shortish leads here which are probably about the right length, so there shouldn't be too much wastage, and I'll just lob off these modern ends and put something a bit more appropriate, which in my trusty box of goodies here. So we'll look in here, if we can actually get in there. So we've got lots of little doodahs here, and lots of spark plug connectors, which are all nice and appropriate for the age of car. We've got lots of these little acorns, which go, obviously, they go in there, so there's plenty of those to go at, but I can actually reuse these because they'll be fine. The leads are shot, but the little acorns will be fine. So I think I'll go and have a rifle through here and just get some bits and pieces together and see what I'm going to use, and then find some snips and make a start on replacing these appalling old leads. Okay, so all we've got at this end, this is a spark plug end, so that obviously goes onto the top of the plug. We've got the lead, we've got the little acorn, because cars like the Morris 8, they have these screw-in connectors on top of the distributor cap. This is the new one, that's the old one, which I'll keep as a spare, but there is a chunk missing out of it just there, so I may as well use the new one as I've got it. And so we've got the acorn on here, and there's like a little copper disc here, and the cable, the wire inside the cable just splays over to hold it in place. These are some new ones here, and these are the things that make the contact along with the inner cable, the copper core inside the cap. So what we need to do is measure out. I'm going to replace number 1 first, which is that one. So I'm going to replace that one first, cannibalise this from the set that we don't need. Obviously I'll chop off these ends because these are the push-on ones for a later car altogether, no use on the Morris 8, and then see where we go from there. Okay, so I've pulled off these two inappropriate ends, and that's left me with a cable with some exposed copper wire there, which is handy. And then that just wants stripping back over there, so I'll get the trusty wire strippers. Just have a look at that one. Strip some off of there. Let's see how we get on. Okie dokie. Right. It's a nice fresh cable there. That's all looking very nice. So obviously on the original, these spark plug connectors, these are soldered on, so we'll sort those out afterwards, but for now we'll just make up each lead accordingly. Now it's actually a bit too long, that one, so as I was going to chop off this end anyway, because it's the old exposed copper wire which is looking a bit corroded, so we'll just measure this to get roughly the right length. Let's do it that way. Okay, it's about there. So I'll chop that off. You can see this is far from pretty. It's got these moisture-proof boots on, which is probably a good idea, especially if the car's in regular use and outside, but I don't think we'll be needing those. So let's just do this cable again. Okay, that's a bit better. Right. So we've got a two nice clean ends. And find a little acorn, which is this little fella here. Technically I should be cleaning these up a bit, but not to worry. So we slide that, which end should we do? This one. Slide that on there, comsat. It's easy to forget to put these on all together or put them on the wrong way around, as I've just shown. We've got one of the little copper thingamajigs. Slide that over here. Could do with nipping a bit of this off actually. It's a little bit too long. Okay. So pop that in there. And then just splay out these ends. And that should do. Still a little bit long, I might nip those down, but that's basically the principle of it. And then they screw in there, make a nice healthy contact. This end will eventually go on the plug. So I'll carry on making up the leads to the right length, getting the acorns on and the little contacts there, and then decide which spark plug tops we're going to put on, which caps, if any. Okay, well that's 4 leads to the right length. So we've got this end stripped, ready for the spark plug connector end. Down here we've got the acorn ready and waiting to screw into the top of the dizzy cap. The little copper, not sure what you call it, and the inner copper core splayed out, ready to meet the contacts inside here. So it just pushes in, and then we screw the acorn down. That's all looking fairly hunky-dory. I'll just label that just for the sake of completeness, because that's what we do. Put that on there, so that's number 2, because the firing order, like on most 4-cylinder British cars, is 1, 3, 4, 2. and the distributor rotates that way, so that's all good. So I'm just left to make the main lead that goes up to the coil, so I'll make one of those up, and then I'll have a look at the connectors for the spark plugs and see what we've got in these boxes here. It's getting breezy again. So those are the connectors that were on there before. I've got these brass ones here which are exactly the same size, so I think we'll clean up a set of those and set two with a soldering iron. Okay, well, that's the first one soldered up. I'm no expert in these things and I don't do it very often, but it appears to be connected. Not sure if that's focusing or not, but it appears to be connected, so I'll just let that cool off and check it. But in the meantime I'll crack on with the other three and see how we get on. Right, time to do a plug lead for number 3 now. So I'll just put a little bit of flux on the end of here just to help things along a little. Shove the connector on there. Give it a good push. Give it a good push that on, so that's on. Now, some lead-free solder here. So we'll give that a go. So I'm no expert in soldering, so don't do what I do. So I'll just heat it up now. Okay, they're all on now. That's looking a lot more ship shape. Sorry if the lighting's not great, but one light's not working. But that's all looking a lot healthier under there now, I think. So I'll just have to see if it runs any better. What are you doing? Come back.